All right, everybody. Good morning. It's Bernard Nomberg. It's another Tuesday at 10 o'clock Central. It's time for our weekly Nomberg Law Live. I'm so glad you guys are here with us today. I have a college buddy of mine, attorney Alice Benton from Atlanta, with us as our guest today. Alice, thank you for joining us, and I hope your day's going well in the Atlanta area.
Going great. Pretty day.
Well, good, good, good. And Alice and I think we first met maybe in a history class freshman year at Vanderbilt sometime in 1980. Ooh, I better not say 86. But but we've been friends other than she roots for the wrong color of red sometimes. And we'll let that slide today. But she has a very active domestic relations practice in Atlanta. And Alice, before we start talking about today's topic, share a little bit about your beautiful family and about your practice, and then we'll dive in.
Okay. Well, our family is still celebrating the Georgia National Championship win. So, can't let that slide.
Oh.
We're doing great. I've got two kids in college. Wells is playing football at Rhodes, and he's working out with Chuck Smith in Atlanta over the holidays. That's one benefit of COVID is that Wells is having to do Zoom college right now before he goes back, which gives him time to do some workouts with Chuck Smith, who played for the Falcons. Mary Liza's already gone back to school. She is at Furman, and they went total different approach than Rhodes on COVID. They are back live in-person class. Oops, sorry.
That's all right. You're good.
But anyway, they're doing great. And then I have one high schooler who's still in high school. So
the caboose is still
the caboose is in high school, and they are in person. And depending on the week, they might have to wear a mask. The next week, they might not have to.
Well, that really leads us to our topic today. I know with your domestic relations practice, much like our work comp practice in Alabama, all the rules changed when the pandemic hit almost 2 years ago. Yeah. We've adapted and figured out how we can continue to help servicing and serving our clients' needs. But in the work comp world, that's a different world than the domestic relations world. Well, it's equally stressful and emotions run high. We're not talking about physical injuries in your cases. You may be talking about emotional issues and injuries, but you go from a full-time in-court regular practice as we were all used to literally haywire 2 years ago. But I know you guys have figured it out. So currently, and I realize this is subject to change even at the end of this week or next month, what does the Georgia system, the court system, allow you to do by way of in-court or virtual, or is it a hybrid, or is it county by county, which it is in Alabama? It's weird, but how do you guys handle it currently?
It's all over the place, and it's a day-to-day basis, just depending on what the chief judge of that county or circuit says they want to do. We went from 2 years ago to a complete shutdown where, you went from being in person in court to you couldn't go to court. Then they figured out Zoom, and you were doing live stream hearings only. Now some courts are opening back up and you've got to go in person. Some counties, it's still Zoom. So it's kind of all over the board. And then you've got counties that are open, but they figured out Zoom works for certain types of hearings. Maybe just like, calendar calls where attorneys are talking to the judge. They realize it's more efficient to be on Zoom than to get 200 people in your courtroom. Which I think is great. It saves me a trip, to another county. And it also lets me practice in a broader range of counties than I might otherwise would limit my practice to. So I kind of like it.
And there are those aspects that I've come to like as well. We can handle cases further away from our home office or our usual territory because of that reason. But I'm sure you've had to learn, just like we have, you got to know your courthouse, you got to know your judge, and you got to know what's expected. And it seems like the smaller the town or the smaller the county, the less likely there is the recognition of COVID and COVID protocols. And I realize that that's not everywhere, but it's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
I would agree with that. They're more likely or apt to be open, less COVID adverse of fear factor, I suppose, the further out you go from Atlanta. But that's also a little bit more old school where you're filing written copies and they want their documents in writing versus electronically filed in a Dropbox that the judge can pull it themselves. So I think with that, you have to know your audience, your judge, as to what they want and how old school they are and what their expectations are when you're going in for a hearing or a trial. Because every single one's different. The judge down the hall may have a different expectation than the one you've got to be in front of the next day. So,
and how is that? Let's take it to your dealing with your clients.
mm-hmm.
Your topics are almost always stressful, largely contentious, and you're having to deal with emotions. And hopefully you have a reasonable attorney on the other side, or an attorney at all on the other side. But just focusing on your clients, how have you guys now adapted and adopted new protocols in that letting your clients know what's coming next and how to set their expectations? Because we don't live in the hurry up and get it done world pre-COVID like we did pre-COVID. Everything, at least my experience, is a little bit of a delay. The mail is delayed, receiving checks, receiving the papers, communications. While we have all this great technology, it doesn't always play to the way that we want it to. So how do you deal with that with your clients?
Most everything we do now is electronic, so I feel like it's pretty fast. I very rarely rely on U.S. mail or certified mail anymore. We'll even use FedEx instead, just to guarantee we can track it and get it there. I'll use certified mail if I need to, but one place where we're seeing a huge slowdown is if a case has got to get transferred to another county because venue's changing or something. They actually have to physically mail and copy the whole file and send it to the other county. It is so slow to get that done. Yeah. Partially because of COVID, because I think they're short-staffed at the courthouse, so people aren't working there. And so to go in and copy the file and put it in the mail seems to take a really long time.
That's like when our dads were practicing. That's in the 70s.
It is completely archaic. I don't know why they can't just send it electronically to another county, but they're still literally physically making a copy and sending a paper copy to the other county.
And how do you, when we all have those bumps in the road when we tell our clients, all right, expect X to be done by this date. But then by that date rolls around and X hasn't occurred. How are you dealing with your clients in this current times, just so they don't yell at you every day?
I think they kind of get what they can't control, they get that there's a backlog of cases. Trying to get to a trial, isn't going to be immediate. Like for example, in the fall with some judges, we were hoping, to get on a jury trial calendar, or not a jury trial calendar, but a bench trial calendar for January. They're already setting out into April. That's how backed up cases are getting. And you just have to be patient. And so as long as they know and you're communicating with them and you're doing all you can, and that it's out of their control and your control, I think you're not going to get sideways with your client, because they know that COVID sort of plays a part in all of this, and you're doing what you can. But yeah, people are, having a hard time because they want to get done with their divorces, and they're not going as fast as they probably could.
And with a lot of people staying home more and being less active, and that's not the average person, but a lot of people, they focus more on their case or the ex or the kids, or in my case, the injury or the employment, and it just builds up in their heads. We've had lots and lots and lots of training with our staff and amongst our attorneys about the psychology of these things, and we like to think that we're always good communicators, but we're having to go even beyond that, more patient with our communications. And I'm sure you're seeing that as well.
Yes, yes, and having access to me, I think helps. It goes a long way, you know, that they're actually getting to talk to me. And that's one nice thing about a boutique firm versus a firm where you don't get past the paralegal, you know what I mean? And so I think just being able to talk to me can reassure them, and that's going to tell them a lot. Plus, I am amazed at the number of attorneys that don't communicate with their clients. They don't forward emails. They don't send them the pleadings. Their clients don't know what's going on. And so the other side of the case is learning about it through their spouse, who's learning about it from me. And so that can be kind of unnerving to clients. But a lot of the hand holding, yes, we do, but also I encourage them to get a therapist. They do not want to pay me for their time, you know, to just talk through the emotional stuff, although I will listen, and it's good to have a context around it because it helps me understand the case. But on a frequent basis, I am not trained as a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they need to spend some time with that person that can help them get through the trauma of, you know, a custody case or divorce. You know,
I certainly, there's so many parallels and similarities to our practices, but the one thing that I never have to deal with is the strong emotional issues with children or with things that are materialistic or sentimental, whatever they may be. And I know that's part of your world, but have you noticed during the last 2 years while we've been in the pandemic, have filings increased, or have you been able to deal with more cases, resolving them without having to go through the court system?
filings are up, domestic violence is up, substance abuse is up. Everything is increased. I mean, just in a bad way, good way economically for lawyers in this area, and professionals that are tangentially tied to this profession. But there's just a lot of anger. There's a lot of people who are focused on maybe being in the same household, you know, when they couldn't go to an office with a spouse they don't want to be around anymore. They realize this isn't working. But also coming through having clients with children who are at home doing Zoom school, seeing that hasn't worked very well, and how the effects of COVID have affected children in custody cases, because I also do guardian ad litem work, and just seeing that either the kids are not learning or they're not getting the resources they need. They're not getting the socialization from being in extracurricular activities because they're at home. They're not being able to be around friends. And it's had a big toll on children, which in turn has a big toll on parents, or parents that are going through divorce cases who are stuck in the same house with their spouse. The children are feeling the results of that because they have no outlet of going to school, because they're there too and they're witnessing all of this. So
they see it and they hear it, even if they're told to go to their room or go to another part of the house, they can't help but hear those things or see those things.
You hear it, and I talk to clients about, even if they're not fighting, you know, meaning like verbally yelling and screaming, even the silent treatment, a child feels the tension. Or maybe you've got a parent who won't eat at the dinner table anymore with the family, or, you know, kids pick up on all that, and that causes a lot of anxiety and stress. And so even if the kids don't talk about it, they may be internalizing it. And that's also why I always recommend to clients that they put their children, you know, in a therapy situation so that they have an outlet other than their mom or dad to talk to.
Yeah, I think that a neutral, emotionally attached third party, somebody who's a professional, may be able to help that child so much more than a well-meaning aunt, uncle, parent, sibling.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm talking with Alice Benton, Benton Law in the Atlanta area. What we're talking about today is how the domestic relations practice in her world, and probably for many lawyers, has changed over the last 2 years, as it has been for really just about every type of law that's practiced out there. While there are a lot of similarities between our work comp practice here in Alabama with Alice's domestic relations and guardian ad litem practice in Atlanta, there are a lot of things that aren't the same as well. And Alice, I want to pivot for just a minute or two and talk about maybe some things that you would recommend if someone's watching our conversation, whether it's live or later on, and they are either in the middle of a situation right now, or they're about to become separated or filing for divorce. I want to talk about maybe some things that they should think of. And before you respond, please know, anybody watching this, this is not legal advice specifically for your case. This is just two attorneys talking about life and or recommendations in general. If you have questions and concerns after the show, and we're going to put Alice's contact information in the show notes, call her or get in touch with her firm to talk about your particular case. So sorry about all of that. But Alice, I want to talk a little bit about things you would recommend for individuals to think about while they're getting into this process. What things do they need to do or think about for themselves, for their children, their assets, those kind of things?
There's a lot that people need to do if you're preparing for a divorce, or if you've just found out that maybe your spouse filed. Number one is do your research on finding a good attorney that's going to be a good fit for you. Do they have trial experience? Are they going to listen to you? Do they have time to give your case attention? Can you afford that attorney? Then you need to make a consultation appointment. If you're thinking about filing, or if someone just filed, you need to get into a lawyer's office and talk through all of your questions, either to prepare for filing, or if someone's just filed, what do you do next? Not acting and not doing anything doesn't help. And just, let's say you're thinking your marriage isn't going well and you're just thinking about divorce. It doesn't really help to talk to friends that much who've gone through divorce, because every case is different. Every financial situation is different. Every custody situation is different, and they may give you bad information. So go see a lawyer, and they can help you prepare and let you know what kind of financial documents you need to be looking for, and prepare yourself that way. Also, what it may look like on the other side of divorce, what you might have to live on, what the custody situation may look like. And I think educating yourself and arming yourself with knowledge and talking to an attorney that does this for a living is going to make you feel better and have more confidence in the process than if you don't. But I'm amazed at the number of people who just kind of go into it blindly and don't do their research. It's sort of like, if you've got to have major surgery for something, do your research. Who knows how to do hand surgery? You want to find the best hand surgeon you can. Same thing with, a divorce lawyer. Find the best one that you can.
Sticking your head in the sand and hoping it goes away rarely
right.
solves,
that
really
does not help.
But what I have found with our clients, and I suspect this may ring true with some of yours, is that the more information my client has about his or her situation, it takes a little bit of the stress away from not being able to sleep at night or emotions running high. So what we try to do, and I suspect this is what you do, is give them as much information is under the law and their particular situation as soon as you can, so that they know a little bit more about what they're dealing with. Because we've all heard the phrase, the fear of the unknown is the greatest fear. Well, if I don't know about my case, if I don't know the laws of Georgia divorce law, if I don't know how custody works, I'm going to be up late at night and I'm going to let Google be my law degree, which is the worst thing that they could do. But
Well, and I think the worst disservice that attorneys do is they oversell and attempt to get a client, either knowing or naively overselling the case. And that may be, let's say, to a parent who's really been pretty hands off, who wants more custody time, and that may not be realistic. So I find that it's very hard to settle cases in a mediation, or we may end up all the way to trial when you've got an attorney on the other side who's oversold their client's position to their own client, and then they can't dial it back, or they wait till mediation and that client's hearing for the first time on the other side. Like, your case stinks.
Yeah.
We're giving you a gut check, a reality check here, and they're looking at their attorney like, what are you talking about? Or their attorney now is pressuring them for the first time to take a different position that they've postured all along, and now they're having to fold their house of cards. And so what ends up happening in that case is now they're mad at their lawyer. They feel like they've spent this time and effort pushing a position that never was tenable to begin with, and they didn't know it. So I try to be realistic with clients, you know, from the get-go, as what the picture is going to happen and likely to happen. Now, sometimes you get blindsided, things you didn't know about, or things change. Things are always changing, but that you didn't expect to happen. But, you know, I think that for the most part, you can kind of give a good parameter of what you think is going to happen. Keep it in the guardrails.
Unfortunately, in my world, I have to lower the expectations from the very first conversation. Alabama work comp law is the worst paying in the country. But yet sometimes, well, I see in Georgia, or I see in Florida, I could get, sorry, dude, let's start
Not
over.
in Georgia.
We're
Yeah.
going to lower those expectations, and then I'm going to build you up a little bit as we go along.
Yeah.
But you're so right. The communication aspect with clients by lawyers is so fundamentally key to any successful representation, because if it's not, you can find yourself on the end of a bar complaint.
I agree. Yeah. And you know, I always think about how Vince Dooley used to coach at Georgia, which, you know, in Alabama, y'all might not, y'all may not have, you know, heard his press conferences over there, but he always underplayed, you know, whether we could win the game, and, you know, was very conservative in his remarks. And, you know, then we blow him out, right? And so he was always trying to temper expectations. And I kind of feel like that's how I practice law. Is I'm very conservative, give you the worst case scenario, and then everybody's like, woohoo, you know, when it comes out well. But I will tell you one thing that is important to tell clients, at least in Georgia, is it is out of our control when we go to court. Weird, crazy things can happen. Judges can go off the rails and do something that you did not expect. They might not even follow the law, purposefully or accidentally. They can just do stuff. So to the extent you can settle and keep it in your control, do it. But it is a risky business when you're before a judge, because they've got all the power at that point.
Don't do it alone. Go find somebody who is experienced in your field. Just like if you mentioned earlier, if you had a broken bone, you go to an orthopedic doctor. If you need your oil changed, go to the oil changing place. Hire the professionals who have the experience. Guys, I've been talking with Alice Benton, the Vince Dooley of domestic relations attorneys in the state of Georgia. Alice, I've put a link to your website in the show notes. I want to thank you for spending time and just sharing a glimpse of your practice and how the domestic relations practice and custodies and those related legal matters in Georgia have evolved during the pandemic. But what's so great is you and so many others, you figured out how to continue representing your clients to the fullest. So thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge today.
Yep, it's great to see you. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And guys, that's why I have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And Alice certainly fits that bill today for this conversation. Please keep coming back Tuesdays at 10 o'clock Central for Nomberg Law Live, as we have been for over 4 years now. We're going to keep on going. We got some great conversations scheduled in the upcoming weeks. Y'all continue to be safe. We'll catch you this time next week. Take care.
Bye.